Welcome to our exploration of the vital link between gender and climate change. As the Earth's climate continues to shift, the consequences are felt most by the world's poorest and most vulnerable, especially women. Despite their unique skills and experiences, women often have less economic, political, and legal power, making them more exposed to climate risks. Yet women are also powerful agents of change, contributing significantly to sustainable development. In this video, we'll dive into how gender equality and women's empowerment are essential for effective climate action and sustainable human development. Let's begin by understanding the urgency of climate change and its impact on different communities. Earth's climate is already changing, and if we fail to limit warming to below 2 degrees C, the consequences could be irreversible and catastrophic. Rising temperatures, extreme weather events, and sea level rise threaten communities worldwide. These changes are not just environmental, they have deep social and economic impacts, especially for those already living in marginal conditions. The poorest, including many women, face the harshest effects, as their livelihoods often depend on natural resources sensitive to climate variability. Let's look closer at why climate change is considered the greatest threat to sustainable development. Climate change threatens to undo decades of progress and development. For 39 consecutive years, Earth's temperatures have exceeded global annual averages, with 2015 being the hottest year on record. The impacts are widespread. Sea levels are rising faster than predicted, major ice sheets are melting, and disasters like floods and storms are more frequent. The cost of these disasters is staggering, reaching up to $300 billion a year. Agriculture, fishing, and other livelihoods are at risk, jeopardizing food security, health, and education. The poorest communities who rely most on natural resources are hit hardest, making it even harder for them to adapt and thrive. Not everyone experiences climate change the same way. According to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, vulnerability and exposure are shaped by social, economic, and cultural inequalities. Marginalized groups, such as women, the elderly, indigenous peoples, and immigrants, are especially at risk. Their vulnerability is rarely due to a single factor. Instead, it results from intersecting social processes like discrimination based on gender, class, ethnicity, or ability. These inequalities limit access to resources and decision-making, making it harder for these groups to cope with and recover from climate impacts. Despite facing significant barriers, women continue to play a crucial role in driving sustainable development. They manage natural resources, support families, and lead communities in adapting to environmental changes. Women's knowledge and skills are invaluable for climate mitigation and adaptation strategies. However, structural and sociocultural barriers often limit their participation and leadership. Empowering women and ensuring their voices are heard is not just a matter of fairness, it's essential for building resilient communities and achieving lasting climate solutions. Year 2015 marked a turning point for gender and sustainable development. The launch of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, brought global attention to poverty, inequality, and violence against women. The Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction and the Paris Agreement both emphasized the importance of gender equality and women's empowerment in climate action. Many countries began to include gender priorities in their climate pledges, recognizing that women's participation is key to building resilience and achieving sustainable progress. Setting ambitious goals is only the first step. The real challenge lies in translating these aspirations into concrete actions that stabilize the Earth's systems and promote human development. Gender equality and women's empowerment must be at the heart of future climate actions and investments. This means integrating gender perspectives in every stage of planning, implementation, and evaluation, ensuring that women's needs and contributions are fully recognized and supported. Vulnerability to climate change is shaped by more than just environmental factors. Social, economic, and political inequalities play a major role. People who are marginalized, whether by gender, class, ethnicity, or disability, face greater risks and have fewer resources to adapt. These intersecting inequalities make it crucial to address the root causes of vulnerability, not just the symptoms. By understanding how different factors combine to create risk, we can design more effective and inclusive climate solutions. Climate change doesn't just create new challenges, it often makes existing inequalities worse. For example, around 350 million people, mostly poor, live in or near forests and depend on them for their livelihoods. As climate stress increases, these communities face greater risks, from biodiversity loss to water scarcity. Similarly, 1.3 billion people living in fragile ecological areas are increasingly endangered by climate impact. Without adequate resources, these groups may be forced into unsustainable practices just to survive, further harming the environment and deepening poverty. Ability to adapt to climate change, known as adaptive capacity, is not equally distributed. The poor and marginalized often lack the resources needed to cope with harsh impacts, such as better housing or drought-resistant crops. This diminished capacity makes them even more vulnerable, sometimes forcing them into unsustainable environmental practices like deforestation. Building adaptive capacity means providing access to resources, education, and support, especially for women and other vulnerable groups. Recent years have seen significant progress in integrating gender into climate change planning at both national and global levels. The Green Climate Fund, for instance, has adopted a gender-sensitive approach, complete with a gender policy and action plan. Countries like Honduras and Peru have prioritized gender integration in their climate policies. At the global level, many countries now include gender dimensions in their climate pledges, recognizing that gender-responsive approaches are essential for effective climate action. Nationally determined contributions, NDCs, are central to the Paris Agreement, representing each country's climate action pledges. Many countries have used this opportunity to embed gender priorities in their climate strategies. About 40% of NDCs explicitly mention gender or women, often as a cross-cutting policy priority. Some countries like Liberia, Peru, and Jordan even reference their gender and climate action plans directly. This trend opens up huge potential for gender-responsive and transformative climate policies worldwide. Beyond NDCs, other policy instruments like national adaptation plans, NAPs, and low-emission development strategies offer even more opportunities to mainstream gender considerations. By embedding gender-responsive approaches in adaptation and development planning, countries can ensure that women's empowerment goes hand-in-hand with climate resilience. This integrated approach benefits not only women but entire communities, paving the way for more effective and sustainable climate solutions. Climate change impacts men and women differently, largely because of their distinct roles, responsibilities, and power dynamics within households and communities. Women often bear the brunt of household work and caregiving, which can limit their mobility and decision-making during disasters. Cultural and religious norms may further restrict women's ability to respond quickly in emergencies. These gender-differentiated impacts highlight the need for climate policies that address the specific vulnerabilities and strengths of both women and men. In many societies, women are primarily responsible for household tasks and caring for children, the sick, and the elderly. During disasters, these responsibilities can become life-threatening. For example, during the 2004 Asian tsunami, 70% of the victims were women, many of whom were trapped at home while men were outside. Such examples underscore how traditional gender roles can increase women's vulnerability in times of crisis, making it essential to address these disparities in disaster planning and response. Men's economic opportunities are often limited by legal and social barriers. Globally, women earn 24% less than men and hold only a quarter of administrative and managerial positions. In many countries, laws restrict women's access to certain jobs or require permission from a husband to work. These disparities extend to land ownership and access to credit, making it harder for women to recover from climate-related losses or invest in adaptation technology. Addressing these barriers is crucial for building resilience and is a critical resource for poverty reduction, food security, and rural development. Yet women make up more than 40% of the agricultural labor force in the developing world, but own only 10 to 20% of the land. This gap limits their ability to invest in sustainable practices or recover from climate shocks. Ensuring equal land rights for women is not just a matter of justice, it's a key step toward more resilient and productive agricultural system. Gender gap is stark when it comes to climate change impacts. 80% of people displaced by climate change are women. Women also face higher risks during disasters, as seen in the 2004 Asian tsunami and Hurricane Katrina. They have less access to funds for recovery, adaptation technologies, and decision-making roles. Bridging this gap is essential for effective climate action and for protecting the most vulnerable. Education is a powerful tool for reducing vulnerability. Studies show that for every additional year of education for women of reproductive age, child mortality decreases by nearly 10%. Yet millions of women and children die prematurely due to indoor air pollution from cooking with solid fuels. Improving access to education and clean energy solutions can save lives and build resilience, especially for women and children. Men are underrepresented in leadership positions worldwide. Only 22% of seats in national parliaments are held by women, and a third of businesses have no women in senior management. Increasing women's participation in decision-making is not just about fairness, it leads to better outcomes. Countries with more women in parliament are more likely to protect land and ratify environmental agreements, showing the positive impact of gender-diverse leadership. Promoting gender equality isn't just the right thing to do, it makes economic sense. Research shows that if women participate in the economy identically to men, global GDP could increase by as much as $28 trillion by 2025. Even matching the fastest progress on gender parity in each region could add $12 trillion to annual global growth. Empowering women is a powerful driver of prosperity and sustainability. Men play a vital role in disaster risk management. Their knowledge and community networks help mobilize effective responses during all phases of disaster management. Studies show that greater involvement of women leads to better disaster preparedness, response, and recovery. Ensuring women's participation in planning and decision-making is essential for building more resilient communities. Despite growing recognition of their importance, women still face significant barriers to participating in climate policy and action. These include legal restrictions, lack of access to resources, and cultural norms that limit their roles. Overcoming these barriers requires targeted policies and programs that promote women's leadership and ensure their voices are heard at all levels. Integrating gender perspectives into climate mitigation and adaptation actions is essential. This means consulting with women, building on their skills and knowledge, and providing opportunities to improve health, education, and livelihoods. When women participate fully, climate actions are more effective and generate greater benefits across the Sustainable Development Goals, especially SDG 5 and SDG 13. Assets like land, credit, and education determine how well people can respond to climate change. Women often have fewer assets, making them more vulnerable. Climate adaptation efforts should focus on building up women's asset base, ensuring they have the resources needed to adapt and thrive. This approach not only benefits women but strengthens entire communities against climate risks. Mitigation and adaptation efforts must also tackle the root causes of gender-based vulnerability, inequality, and poverty. Policies should recognize women's central role in environmental, social, and economic development. Empowering women and promoting gender equality are key to building resilient economies and communities. Actions and technologies must be pro-poor and gender-responsive to be truly effective. Nationally appropriate mitigation actions, NAMAs, and National Adaptation Plans, NAPs, offer opportunities to operationalize gender-responsive climate policies. By embedding gender considerations in these frameworks, countries can ensure that climate actions benefit women and other marginalized groups, leading to more equitable and sustainable outcomes. Effective climate policy requires an in-depth, evidence-based analysis of women's and men's roles in sectors impacted by climate change. Understanding their strategies for coping with climate impacts provides a solid foundation for developing targeted policies and programs. This approach ensures that interventions address the real needs and strengths of both genders. Around 350 million people, mostly poor, depend on forests for their livelihoods. Women play a key role in managing these resources, but climate stress on forests threatens their well-being. Supporting women in forest communities with resources and training can help protect both livelihoods and the environment, creating a win-win for people and nature. Women make up a significant portion of the agricultural workforce in developing countries, but often lack access to land, credit, and technology. Climate change threatens agricultural productivity, making it even more important to empower women farmers. Providing equal access to resources can boost food security and help communities adapt to changing conditions. Access to clean water is a major challenge in many regions affected by climate change. Women and girls are often responsible for collecting water, a task that becomes harder as droughts and water scarcity increase. Investing in water infrastructure and involving women in water management decisions can improve health, reduce burdens, and build resilience. Millions of women and children die prematurely due to indoor air pollution from cooking with solid fuels. Access to clean energy solutions can save lives and free up time for education and economic activities. Empowering women to lead in clean energy adoption benefits families, communities, and the environment. Women are often at the forefront of disaster recovery, mobilizing communities and providing essential support. However, they frequently lack access to funds and technologies needed for effective recovery. Ensuring women have equal access to resources and decision-making roles can speed up recovery and build stronger, more resilient communities. Education is a key factor in reducing vulnerability to climate change. When women and girls have access to education, they are better equipped to adapt and help their families and communities do the same. Investing in girls' education is one of the most effective ways to build long-term resilience and promote sustainable development. Climate change affects health in many ways, from heat waves to disease outbreaks. Women, especially those caring for children and the elderly, are often on the front lines. Improving access to healthcare and supporting women's health needs is essential for building resilient communities and reducing climate-related risks. Urban areas face unique climate challenges, from heat waves to flooding. Women in cities often live in informal settlements with limited access to services. Empowering women to participate in urban planning and resilience building can lead to safer, more inclusive cities that are better prepared for climate impacts. Access to technology is crucial for adapting to climate change, but women often face barriers in accessing and using new tools. Programs that provide training and support for women to adopt climate-smart technologies can boost productivity, improve livelihoods, and enhance resilience. Financial services are essential for building resilience, but women often face discrimination in accessing credit, insurance, and other financial tools. Expanding women's access to finance enables them to invest in adaptation strategies, recover from disasters, and support their families through climate shocks. Women's voices are often underrepresented in policy discussions, yet their perspectives are essential for effective climate action. Supporting women's participation in advocacy and decision-making ensures that policies reflect the needs and strengths of all community members, leading to more inclusive and sustainable outcomes. Social capital, the networks and relationships that support communities, is a powerful resource in times of crisis. Women often play a central role in building and maintaining these networks. Strengthening women's social capital can enhance community resilience and improve responses to climate challenges. Climate change is driving migration, with women often facing unique risks and challenges during displacement. Ensuring that migration policies are gender-sensitive can protect women's rights and support their adaptation to new environments, reducing vulnerability and promoting stability. Indigenous women possess valuable knowledge about local ecosystems and sustainable practices. Including their voices in climate planning can lead to more effective and culturally appropriate solutions. Recognizing and respecting Indigenous women's contributions is key to successful climate adaptation. Young women are emerging as leaders in climate activism, bringing fresh perspectives and energy to the movement. Supporting youth leadership and ensuring gender equality in youth programs can accelerate progress toward climate goals and inspire the next generation of changemakers. Women are driving innovation in climate solutions, from developing new technologies to creating community-based adaptation strategies. Encouraging women's participation in innovation can unlock creative solutions and ensure that climate actions meet the needs of all members of society. As we've seen, gender equality and women's empowerment are not just moral imperatives, they are essential for effective climate action and sustainable development. By integrating gender perspectives into climate policies, supporting women's leadership, and addressing the root causes of vulnerability, we can build a more resilient and equitable future for all. Together, we have the power to drive meaningful change and ensure that no one is left behind in the fight against climate change.